How do you create emotional freedom? Is the topic of today's Soul Sovereignty and Sexuality podcast with myself, Jessica Falcon, international soul embodiment guide and relationship expert. And the emotional freedom piece drastically affects our relationships. Because if we are wanting to create intimacy, if we're feeling frustrated or angry toward a partner, if we have needs or feelings that are unexpressed or unheard, the emotions can impact our ability to communicate in the relationships, our ability to feel heard or seen, our ability to express ourselves in a way that we can be heard. Because if you're expressing yourself from an emotional place that isn't also in deep consciousness of how your words are impacting the person you're speaking to, then they likely aren't going to be heard in the way that you would desire if you were working with your emotions more consciously. What I have seen is that a lot of people throw their emotions on others, make them responsible for the emotions, or they speak from the emotional place rather from their internal center. And when we speak our emotions consciously from our internal center, they are received very differently than when we're speaking from the emotion itself or lost in the emotion. That doesn't create the type of communication in a relationship in which you can actually be seen and see the other and honor them simultaneously. Because a relationship is two people choosing out of desire to come together and create the union. Placing emotional demands on another isn't necessarily honoring the other person's choice and sovereignty. And this learning emotional freedom, emotional intelligence, deepening your emotional capacity is really essential for experiencing freedom in your relationships. It's essential for you and your reclamation of your power and sovereignty. And so let me start by talking about what is an emotion. An emotion is emotion, energy in motion. It's energy. Let's take the attachment away that I see especially a lot of women have of I am my emotion. I am angry. I am sad. There's this deep identification, conscious or unconscious, with the emotion. Part of developing emotional freedom, emotional sovereignty, is having the consciousness of the observer being in your inner center, knowing the emotion is not me. The emotion is not who I am. It's not what I am. It is an experience I am having that is informing me, that is showing me more of myself, that is showing me maybe a boundary or what I truly desire. It's giving me wisdom if I look at it, but I am not my emotion. I am not what I feel. I am beyond that. And this observer consciousness, this ability to witness the emotion as pure energy, is key to moving the emotion through you without identifying with it or throwing it on others or attaching to it. This is a lot of what I teach in my Sacred Body Wisdom workshops, which I've been doing in person around the East Coast. There are a couple more left, so check the show notes below if you're anywhere in Ohio, Asheville, North Carolina, or Abingdon, Virginia. You can come to them in person. And then there's also an online version of this. It's the Sacred Body Wisdom online series. So you can check that out at the Path to Sovereignty if you want to go deeper into this emotional freedom and soul healing and embodiment. When you are able to witness the emotion as pure energy, it allows you to be the witness and to keep your heart open without judgment, without attachment to meaning anything about who and what you are, who or what this other person is, for example, if you feel anger towards someone, and just be curious, keeping your heart open to be curious about this emotion, to receive its wisdom. And you remain the master. You remain the self-master. This emotion, if it is directing your behavior and you are not consciously choosing it, then you're not emotionally free. You have to develop the capacity to be really curious about the emotion and get to the root. Now, sometimes we just have these fleeting emotions and experiences, and it's pretty easy to process. Like, say, someone at the grocery store is really rude and inconsiderate, and so you feel frustrated by their inability to see you and their lack of thoughtfulness. Okay, great. You just acknowledge it, you breathe it in, you breathe it out, you move through it. Other times, especially in intimate relationships, there are deeper recurring emotions because it's unresolved or it hasn't been expressed or this person isn't hearing you, for example. And those recurring emotions really require introspection and getting to the root thought. So our emotions derive from our thoughts. Our thoughts derive from our beliefs. If we're simply being ruled by the emotions, we never get to the thought and we never get to the belief, conscious or unconscious. Because as you do emotional work, you are accessing more of your subconscious mind, which is another key piece of sovereignty, to access your subconscious. Because if you're not accessing your subconscious mind, you're not in conscious choice. Your subconscious is ruling you, which is what you've ingested from the outside world. It's not necessarily your soul's truth, your divine truth. And our subconscious is accessed through, guess what? Our emotions, our feeling state. They guide us into the awareness of the subconscious mind when we follow them with detachment through our inner center, our consciousness, to observe it with curiosity. And we look at that underlying thought. We look at the underlying belief. This is what I guide my clients into when we work together one-on-one, so that you can then look at that belief and decide if it's your truth. And if it's not, align it to your truth. It might be in an intimate relationship that you have this underlying thought, he never listens to me, for example. He never does anything I ask for. Okay, so then you look at that. You get really clear. What are the emotions underneath? What are these thoughts I'm having? What are these beliefs I'm having? Is this showing up in other areas of my life, for example? And then it always comes back to choice. And that choice can be a boundary. That choice can be a deeper, more vulnerable expression of your truth. And I'll talk more at some point about communication relationships, because I see a lot of people not communicating from their heart in relationships. And it creates more conflict that isn't really necessary. But in order to be able to have that level of conscious communication in your relationships, you have to first find your emotional freedom so that you're not throwing your emotions on others. When you are throwing your emotion on others, that can look like yelling and screaming, literally throwing things, making them responsible for how you feel, not hearing them, only wanting to be heard, making it a one-way conversation, making demands. And that isn't honoring your true sovereignty or theirs. It's really important that when we're talking about emotional freedom, that you not make other people responsible for how you feel. And this can get confusing because, yes, you feel the way you do as a direct result of this person's behavior, right? And so it's easy to say, well, that person is responsible for how I feel, because I wouldn't feel this way if that person hadn't done X, Y, Z. And how each of us responds to behavior is very unique to our own emotional blueprint, our own desires, our own choices, our own boundaries, what we will or will not tolerate. We don't all respond the same because we're unique. And so it's looking at how can I take responsibility for what I feel and make a choice in alignment with my inner truth, and then express this to the other so that they can also be in their truth and their inner alignment, so that we come together in resonance in our relationship and create communication and connection and understanding. That responsibility for your emotion is basically the responsibility of how you respond to that emotion and the choices they then make in your life. The Sacred Body Wisdom online series or the in-person workshop is a really powerful way to receive more of these teachings about emotional freedom and soul healing and deep level soul embodiment. So I highly encourage you to check that out at thepathtosovereignty.com, and I'll put the links below. Otherwise, I'll see you on the podcast next week. Be sure to make a comment if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes or what this brought up for you. Be sure to subscribe. And if you want to receive the podcast into your weekly inbox, I have a new free gift coming out soon that you'll get access to. It's a womb meditation to activate your sexual energy. So if you sign up for that, you'll get another free gift, which is a ritual to reclaim your sovereignty. But within the next week or so, I'll have that womb meditation out to activate sexual energy that you can receive for free. Lots of love to you, and I'll see you next week.